You're here because you might be wondering, WTF is Jurassic Park. Jurassic Park was a movie that shook the entire world when it was released in 1993. The stunning visuals, characters, music, and of course, dinosaurs made it one of the most popular movies of all time. The reaction to the movie was nuts, as it was definitely seen as revolutionary at the time and still kind of is. Thanks to its use of both CGI special and practical effects, the movie holds up extremely well. Dinosaurs were everywhere. You couldn't turn without seeing that awesome Jurassic Park logo in theaters and stores, especially Toys R Us with all the amazing action figures, models, and toys. I mean, you had them pretty much based on everything having to do with the movie. The general sentiment really was that they could do no wrong. And then, of course, with any new craze, you have to have video games. And Jurassic Park in particular had a game on the Sega Genesis which was... Wait, what? What could be wrong with the game? I mean, of course, you've got the graphics, the characters, the dinosaurs, and I mean, shoot, you could even play as the raptor. This game was, well, generally regarded as not being very good. I remember as a child, I absolutely loved the game, but I was also a kid who was used to games that were designed to be extremely challenging and didn't necessarily see games from a quality standpoint, but more as mountains to be climbed and conquered. Each game I played was yet another notch under my belt too. Oh, well, I still enjoyed the game, but I'd be kidding you if I didn't have issues with this one. Jurassic Park for the Sega Genesis was developed by Blue Sky Software and published by Sega. Blue Sky Software at the time was a newer developer, only around 5 years old at the time, and having developed a few titles for just the Atari 7800, the Lynx, Amiga, Commodore 64, and the Sega Master System, and of course the Game Gear and Sega Genesis. The team was small at the time, gaining experience with creating mostly sports titles, but they did have success creating titles based on film properties such as Dick Tracy and The Little Mermaid on the Sega systems. They eventually entered an agreement with Sega for exclusivity, which gave them the financial windfall and office space needed to create more games, eventually receiving the task and license to develop Jurassic Park for the Sega Genesis. As Dr. Grant, you would get an experience filled with tension, exploration, and a sense of Jurassic danger as you tried to navigate through the game's 6 stages, each representing different areas of Isla Nublar, in order to escape before the island is destroyed by a napalm strike. Armed with a tranquilizer dart gun, your attacks will not do much other than briefly put the dinosaurs you encounter to sleep. As the raptor, however, you would pounce, attack, and consume everything and everyone on sight while you follow the scent of Dr. Grant, intelligent and fully aware that something terrible is about to happen to the island, and you must find a way to escape and survive. On paper, this all sounds amazing and great, but how exactly does it play? Well... The first thing you will probably notice is how poorly the game runs. The frame rate is all over the place, even the title screen kind of lags a bit, and is made even worse when you factor in how slow the movement and animations are. Jurassic Park at times just feels so sluggish to control as a result. The menu here gives you the option to play, select your player character, some standard options, and a password entry. In the options menu, you can set your difficulty level, turn music on and off, and map your buttons. Something to note here, though, is I actually found this out while I was recording. If you decide you want to turn the music off, you'll actually turn off all sound effects. This is actually a major bug in the game that will cause you to miss some important potential audio cues later on. And of course, you can change your button mapping here. Another major problem with the game is hit detection, or rather, the lack thereof. Many times, you will find yourself trying to jump over a gap only to have your character mysteriously fall short and plummet to their death. You are oftentimes asked by the game to make giant leaps of faith, resulting in a lot of fatal trial and error. This is all made worse by how unforgiving the game is with its checkpoints. In every level, if you die, you are sent back to the very beginning of the stage. If you die 3 times, it is game over, and you will need to restart the game or enter a password to continue on the level you left off. As a raptor, you are also even bulkier with terrible hit detection, resulting in a lot of unfair deaths. All of these problems down on paper should show that this game is just plain old bad, right? But is it really? Jurassic Park is not an easy game by any stretch of the imagination, and it will take quite a bit of time and effort to get through. And despite all of its problems, it can actually be really fun. When you start the game as Dr. Grant, if you try to orient yourself by pressing a few buttons, shooting the tranquilizer gun will have you rewarded by being tossed around like a ragdoll by a triceratops. You'll notice that Dr. Grant cannot jump and land from extreme heights, and that he cannot kill dinosaurs using most of his arsenal. They are only temporarily stunned or put to sleep by the darts. He ducks and slowly walks through passageways, takes a lot of effort to climb ledges and across vines, and dies instantly if you fall from too great of heights. They drive home the fact that you are just a fragile human surrounded by prehistoric predators. Another thing you may start to notice here is the music. Music is, of course, subjective, but the little kid version of me found this to be a bop. The slick bass accompanied by the drums coming from the Genesis chip had me sitting straight up, bobbing my head to the music as I tried to storm through the jungle to make my escape. I think this may have resulted in having you move through the platformer and treat the game like it was a Sonic title, when it really is not. It could definitely be seen as counterintuitive and is also more fitting when you're a raptor charging through everything and everyone. But, I like it. Overall, the game itself has some pretty great tunes with overall memorable melodies. If you carry any nostalgia at all for the game, you may have found yourself even humming or remembering the bass melody from the soundtrack at some point in your life. The raptor follows a similar path in the beginning, but then it quickly deviates. As Grant tries to sneak past a T-Rex through the power station in River Rapids on boat, the raptor navigates and tears through InGen employees in the pump station. The learning curve during both sections here definitely spike up equally for both characters as well. Grant will easily die if the boat goes down the wrong path, and trying to land it just right to avoid the spikes at each corner can be rather annoying. The raptor has it even worse here, with the extremely tight jumps and leaps of faith it is often forced to take. I couldn't tell you how many times I've died during this level trying to record this. Grant finds himself traveling across an extensive sweaty mountain vista and through a volcano, while the raptor keeps up his pursuit high up from a distance in a brief and short level. Their paths would then finally meet and converge with a climatic battle in the Welcome Center. Grant has it rather easy here, whereas the raptor has to fight with both enemy InGen soldiers and the really bad collision detection. The game has a surprising amount of meat packed into it for a title that came out in the early 90s. We have to keep in mind that back in the day, something like this was very ambitious to stack all of this inside one tiny little cartridge, as this was in the days before fitting entire movies on Blu-ray discs or even DVDs was a thing. This was before the Xbox and PlayStation. This was even before Super Mario 64, which wouldn't be released until years later. Personally, I can see there's a lot of good intention here and a lot of passion behind this project. And sure, the execution was definitely not great. It would seem that they just didn't have the time to execute the ideas they had laid out in mind. But what they did achieve was still admirable in its own way. And if the game was tackled in a way that understands the intent, you could have a lot of fun speedrunning this in spite of performance issues. The game is very forgiving in this regard. Even though death will often lead you to restarting the stage, you effectively have unlimited continues via the password system. You can quickly return back to where you were by going to the password entry and resuming from there. In this respect, you could liken it or compare it to almost like Dark Souls for the time, where you make your way through the game via trial and error. Although Grant is unable to completely put a dinosaur to rest, unless he's using, of course, a rocket launcher, ammunitions and health drops are actually rather plentiful. And if you're searching for an even greater challenge, you can up the difficulty and experience the surprisingly smart AI for the time coming from the dinosaurs. There's a lot to appreciate here, and perhaps if someone out there was willing to fix some of the hit detection, frame rate, and sound issues, what we would have here is an amazing hidden gem of a licensed title. As it turns out though, Blue Sky was also unhappy with the result, but thanks to the success of Jurassic Park, they were given a chance to create a second title for the Sega Genesis in order to try and right their wrongs. If you are a fan of Jurassic Park and are looking for a Sega Genesis game to play, I would recommend at least checking out both Jurassic Park and Rampage Edition. For all its flaws, Jurassic Park is a game that dared to do a lot, surprisingly so, especially with its graphics, its music, and amounts of gameplay content that is actually packed into that Sega Genesis cartridge. Have you ever played Jurassic Park for the Sega Genesis? What are your thoughts on it? Let us know in the comments below. Until next time, see you later, hedgehogs.